So I started out by scraping away all the topsoil using my tractor bucket, and then using red spray paint to mark little dots where I'm gonna dig. I just dig with my backhoe. You could dig by hand if you needed to though. It's a 16-inch wide bucket. I find that one scoop is usually about the perfect amount for a post hole. Each post hole with this bucket size is going to use about 1/10 of a yard of concrete. So I ordered 2 yards because there were 18 holes and it was the perfect amount. This is a Branson 36 horsepower tractor with an 8.5-foot backhoe, and it's probably my favorite tool and one of the best investments I ever made. I use this thing all the time. You wouldn't believe how often it comes in handy when you do work like this. Here I'm just repeating the same thing. And I use a tooth bar to sort of level out the dirt there, make it all nice and smooth. If you don't have a tooth bar for your tractor bucket, by the way, you better go ahead and get you a tooth bar. This is one of the coolest upgrades you can have on a tractor, in my opinion. There we are. View from above. My other favorite tractor implement is, of course, these pallet forks. When you get good with these pallet forks, you can do some really cool stuff with them. These boards were just so heavy. They were soaked. 16-foot long 6x6s. You could carry those by hand if you wanted, but not me. Here I'm just using a tape measure and a Sharpie to mark where I'm going to make my cuts. The long pieces I want to be about 6 feet long. The shorter pieces are going to be about 4 feet. So a 16-foot board gives you 3 pieces, 2 6-footers and 1 4-footer. Here I'm ghost riding the whip, throwing them things in the hole. You put that tractor in the lowest gear and just let it ride. Some tractors won't let you do that because they want you to sit in the seat where the engine stops, but mine is cool like that. He lets me do whatever I want. Here goes that concrete truck. Not much to say here. It's just a concrete truck pouring concrete. I will say, if you think that you're going to go to the store and do this by hand with concrete bags, think again. It's not going to save you any money or time. Check out this trick I have for unrolling spools of wire. Is that cool or what? That saved me a ton of time. Unrolling wire is not fun. You would think it would be, and it's definitely not. Here I'm just filling in that trench a little bit. So here, I just drove some screws into the post at the appropriate heights, and then I used my 8-foot level so I could have a nice straight line to make marks on. Now I know exactly where to cut with my DeWalt 60-volt chainsaw. Another one of my favorite tools that I use all the time. That thing's got an enormous amount of power, by the way, for an electric chainsaw. If you're on the fence about grabbing one of these, go ahead and get it. You won't be disappointed. The angle that I chose here is optimized for in between fall and winter. Summer and winter. Here I'm just unloading panels off of the pallet. It was really useful to have these pallet forks here to be able to pick that whole pallet up and just move it wherever I need it. Each one of these solar panels weighs about 50 pounds, and they're about 3 feet wide by about 7 feet long. So it would be pretty difficult to move them around by yourself if you didn't have something like this going on. There were 27 to put on total, 3 rows of 9. If you use pressure-treated 6x6x16s for those horizontal beams, you have a 32-foot wide array overall, which ends up being absolutely perfect to mount 9 solar panels. If you were going to mount 10 panels, then you wouldn't be able to just use 2 16-foot 6x6s. You'd have to use a 20-footer and then cut one of them. So I was really lucky that it worked out like that without me having to make any extra cuts. So here's just the same thing repeated for the second row. I gotta say, looking back on this footage, I look like what do I look like here? So skinny. I was so sick at this time. I was 30 pounds underweight here, in and out of the hospital. This was a really rough time in my life, guys, let me tell you. Here I figured out, though, that you could just use the tractor forks to set that 6x6 down. That took a lot of work. A lot of work off my back there. That was really nice. Look at that. That is the definition of working smart, not hard. Set that thing right down on there. I didn't have to lift any of these boards by hand at any point. I used those forks to get them off of the trailer and put them right on the post just like that. Never lifted it by hand once. Here I'm just making sure that those beams are in plane with each other. I used 8-inch structural bolts to drive up through the post into the bottom of the beam. Here I'm just driving bolts into the top part of the bottom beam. That way when I set the panels down, they won't want to slide off and fall off. The bottom of the panel will just run into that bolt and it'll stay right where I need it to until I can wiggle it into place. So that's it. It's pretty simple. This took me about 3 days of work. Maybe a little less than 3 days, probably closer to 2 full days. But you gotta remember that concrete has to dry for 24 hours before you can start putting any weight on those posts. So you'll have to wait for that. So you can see that those rows are spaced such that my tractor can fit through there, a lawnmower can fit through there. You could drive your truck in between those rows if you needed to. It's really important to make sure that you leave enough room in between the rows of panels for equipment and vehicles to get through. Also, if you put them too close together, they'll shade each other in the winter. I find that you want a minimum of about 10 to 12 feet in between each row of panels. So this job really wasn't that bad for one guy to be able to do it all by himself in just a couple of days. And as far as the cost goes, we're looking at about $1,300 for the solar panels here for 27 panels, and about $1,800 for the wood and the concrete. I have to say I'm really happy with the way this came out. I've actually been using this method for many years. The first array that I ever made with this method is probably about 5 years old, and there haven't been any problems with it. It's been working great the whole time. A lot of people ask why I don't put them on the roof. It's a good question. I have done roof mount before. There's a couple problems with it. Number one, it's not very easy to access, so if you want to clean them or make any changes or anything, it's going to be a bit of a pain. The other problem with the roof mounts too is that it's almost always gonna be a hassle to deal with your insurance company about that. Unless you have a standing seam metal roof, then you can do a roof mount without making penetrations in the roof, and there's really nothing that an insurance company can say about that. But most people don't have a standing seam metal roof. For that reason, it's really best to just do ground mounts. So here's a close-up of me driving those bolts at the bottom of the panels there. The ones at the bottom are to keep the panels from sliding downwards off of the beam. And you can see there's also one in between the two panels there. That's happening on each side of the panel, at the bottom and at the top. So each panel is being held down by a total of 6 bolt heads. It's an enormous amount of hold down strength, probably way overkill. But this method is so cheap and easy anyway, I don't mind. You can use the lines on the panels to make sure that bolt is lined up right at the middle of the panel, and it'll look really clean. Make sure you spray paint, cut, and grain, even if it's a pressure treated board. Once you make a cut in that board and it gets exposed to the weather, it can rot out. That's why I was spraying, I think I used clear coat for this build, but you can use any kind of paint. So here's just a quick run through of the third row. It's just the same as the other two. If you want to see more of this kind of content, you know exactly what you need to do, right?